High Ambassador Zix Thraxel of the Galactic Consortium clutches the edge of the observation deck, mandibles clicking in terror as the primitive Terran spacecraft performs the impossible. The battered human vessel, with its mismatched hull plates and retrofitted engines, slices through the quantum storms of the Veil Nebula like a knife through water. 3 Consortium science vessels had disintegrated attempting the same passage last cycle. The ambassador's aid collapses in shock when the humans activate what appears to be a modified mining laser to punch a temporary hole in a reality fluctuation. Recording everything, whispers Science Director Clef, her crystalline appendages trembling as she adjusts the quantum sensors. The Eternal Archives must document this violation of natural law. The Consortium's observation ship maintains a safe distance, hidden behind a cloak of bent light as the human vessel, proudly displaying the name Lucky Break in peeling paint, navigates directly through a gravity shear that their instruments register as Class 9 fatal. They should be atomized, mutters the navigator, his 17 eyes blinking in asynchronous confusion. Their hull integrity cannot possibly. His voice dies as the human ship does something that makes the Consortium's most advanced AI navigation system crash and reboot. The Lucky Break seems to momentarily exist in 3 places simultaneously, before choosing the path of least resistance through a quantum anomaly by some criteria incomprehensible to the watching aliens. After 3 hours of increasingly improbable maneuvers, the Consortium vessel finally drops its cloak and initiates first contact protocols. The human ship responds with casual informality that borders on linguistic sacrilege according to Consortium diplomatic standards. Captain Sarah Reeves appears on the view screen, a middle-aged woman with laugh lines around her eyes and a faded tattoo of Earth's solar system visible on her forearm. She sips from a chipped mug while explaining they got through the nebula by feeling the currents and threading the needle. Ambassador Zix Thraxel's translation implant struggles to convert these idioms, eventually settling on detecting probability waves through non-instrumental means and navigating multi-dimensional space via intuitive plotting. Perhaps a demonstration would help, offers Reeves, noticing the alien's confusion. The ship's navigator, an elderly woman named Constance Wu, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seem to see beyond normal space, enters the frame. To the Consortium representative's horror, she calmly blindfolds herself and approaches the navigation console. "My grandmother taught me to navigate typhoons in the South China Sea," Wu explains, her fingers dancing across star charts with impossible precision. Space isn't so different. It has moods, rhythms, tempers. As they watch, she perfectly plots their next jump trajectory using only her fingertips on an ancient paper star chart, occasionally pausing to smell the recycled air or listen to the subtle vibrations in the deck plates. When the blindfold comes off, Wu glances at the standard navigation computer and makes a minor adjustment. "Computer's off by 0.03 degrees, she notes casually. "Wouldn't matter except there's a micro black hole forming in that sector. Won't show up on sensors for another 3 hours, but you can feel the gravitational harmonics already." The Consortium representatives exchange horrified glances. These humans aren't just ignorant of universal laws. They're casually violating principles considered fundamental to existence itself. "We would be honored," Ambassador Zix Thraxel says with formal stiffness that masks existential dread, "if your vessel would accompany us to Consortium headquarters. Our Supreme Scientific Council will be most interested in your methods." Captain Reeves shrugs amiably. "Sure, we could use some shore leave. Fair warning though, last time we visited a space station, my engineer rewired their waste reclamation system to brew better coffee. Improved efficiency by 340%, but the smell took some getting used to." The ambassador's translator mercifully fails to process this final comment. Captain Eliza Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Serendipity stifles laughter as 7 alien dignitaries struggle to wheel in what appears to be a small library, a 900,000-page manual titled The Immutable Rules of Celestial Navigation. The room falls silent when Chief Engineer Rodriguez casually mentions they navigate primarily by gut feeling and the vibrations in the deck plates. "You misunderstand," insists Grand Navigator Plextor, his translucent appendages fluttering with agitation. "These are not suggestions. These are the mathematical absolutes that govern all interstellar travel for every known species." Rodriguez, a compact woman with calloused hands and oil-stained coveralls, shrugs. "Math's a tool, not a master. Sometimes you gotta listen to the ship itself." The consortium delegation's translator device actually shorts out from what they later term logic violation overload. 3 technicians rush to repair it, while the human crew exchanges amused glances. Captain Chen, diplomatic to a fault, suggests a tour of the serendipity while the device is fixed. The consortium scientists agree, recording devices activated to document the humans' incomprehensible technology. "This is where the magic happens," Rodriguez announces proudly, leading them into engineering, a chaotic space where jury-rigged components sit alongside cutting-edge tech. A small garden of succulents grows around the primary reactor housing. "The plants tell us when radiation levels shift," she explains. "Canary in a coal mine, but prettier." The aliens' collective horror escalates when Rodriguez removes a panel to reveal navigation circuits partially replaced with analog gauges and what appears to be a modified musical instrument. "We found the standard sensors couldn't detect subtle reality harmonics," explains Rodriguez, plucking a string that produces a resonant hum. "So we built our own." Halfway through the tour, a sudden gravitational anomaly rocks the station. Warning klaxons blare as automated systems predict structural failure within minutes. Consortium navigators frantically consult their equations on glowing tablets, calculating escape vectors with increasing desperation. Chen's 19-year-old helmsman, Jin Park, watches with curious detachment. Then, as the aliens debate complex mathematical proofs, he casually grabs a napkin from the dining table, sketches a course correction with a piece of charcoal, and hands it to Captain Chen. "You sure?" Chen asks, examining the crude drawing. Park nods once. "I can feel the currents shifting." "That path feels smoother." Chen doesn't hesitate. "Rodriguez, implement Park's corrections." To the aliens' astonishment, the human crew executes the napkin-sketched maneuvers without question. The serendipity gently nudges the station, altering its position by mere meters, just enough to slide it into a gravitational null point that the consortium's instruments hadn't detected. The alarms silence. The crisis passes. Later, hidden cameras capture the human crew in the recreation area playing what appears to be a primitive projectile game. Darts, they call it. The consortium scientists reviewing the footage are stunned to realize the seemingly meaningless game precisely mimics the intuitive spatial awareness humans use to navigate reality distortions. "Notice how they account for the station's rotational drag without calculations," whispers one scientist. "They're internalizing 4-dimensional vectors through muscle memory." More disturbing still, the recordings reveal Chief Engineer Rodriguez staring directly into one of the hidden cameras, winking, then deliberately throwing a dart that passes through a gravity pocket none of their instruments had detected. The humans are fully aware of the surveillance and are deliberately showcasing their abilities, turning what should be a scientific observation into an unsettling performance art. "They're not just lucky," the lead scientist concludes in his classified report. "They're perceiving reality at a fundamental level our species cannot access. Most concerning of all, they find our inability amusing." Emergency klaxons blare throughout the Epsilon outpost as a Class X solar flare erupts without warning. 2,000 consortium citizens face certain death, their evacuation ships rendered useless as radiation scrambles navigation cores. Captain Chen's offer of assistance is met with sneers until a terrified administrator, watching her children huddled in the shelter, overrides protocol. "You'll never survive the approach," warns Consortium Science Director Vikelf, 6 eyes blinking frantically as she reviews the radiation forecasts. "The mathematical probability's off." "With respect," Chen interrupts, "we're not asking permission anymore." She turns to her communications officer. Tell Takahashi to prep the Serendipity. We're going in. What follows becomes legend. The Serendipity diving straight toward the pulsar's corona as consortium scientists scream warnings of certain death. The station's emergency channels overflow with calculations predicting the human ship's imminent disintegration. On board, the situation appears surreal to the consortium observers monitoring through emergency telemetry. The human crew has activated ancient jazz music, a chaotic improvisational art form that seems to mirror their approach to navigation. Engineer Takahashi, a tall man with elegant hands and a serene expression, uses colored chalk on actual paper to plot a gravity-assisted ricochet between 3 neutron stars. Miles Davis, he explains to his apprentice, nodding at the music while marking trajectories in blue and red chalk. Best navigator who never left Earth. Listen to how he finds the spaces between notes. That's where we'll find our path. In the spaces between gravitational fields. The Serendipity's observation deck has been converted into an impromptu navigation center. Mirrors salvaged from crew quarters are arranged to reflect light patterns from the pulsar. 3 navigators watch the shifting patterns while calling course corrections to the bridge. It's like reading tea leaves, mutters one consortium scientist monitoring the feed. They're navigating a Class X stellar event using reflective decorative objects. The Serendipity executes a series of maneuvers that the consortium computers repeatedly flag as physically impossible. The ship dances through radiation streams, using the deadly energy to power a makeshift shield of ionized particles. At one point, they deliberately fly directly into a solar prominence, using its magnetic field to slingshot around the most dangerous radiation front. They're not just ignoring the celestial rules, whispers a junior scientist. They're exploiting the gaps in our understanding. The Serendipity emerges from the maneuver-trailing plasma fire, hull plates glowing blue from radiation absorption, but structurally intact. More shocking to the watching consortium, the human ship is now carrying all 3 previously immobilized alien vessels, physically tethered with primitive carbon fiber cables and being dragged to safety. In the aftermath, as medical teams treat the rescued aliens, a consortium elder confronts Chen on the observation deck. You risked everything on untested theory. No mathematical model predicted your success. Chen's response becomes immortalized in xenological textbooks across 17 systems. Theory. No, sir. I grew up sailing hurricanes off New Earth. Space storms aren't so different when you feel them in your bones. The universe speaks a language older than mathematics. Rhythm, harmony, resonance. Your species wrote elegant equations to approximate that language. Mine learned to speak it directly. The elder's translation device struggles with the concepts, eventually displaying a single word: impossible. Takahashi, passing by with his chalk-covered hands, smiles gently. That's humanity's favorite starting point. Within the gleaming Consortium Engineering Academy, a team of the galaxy's most brilliant minds dismantles a human shuttle piece by piece. Their leader, Grand Architect Vex Moria, nearly suffers a psychotic break when she discovers the oxygen recyclers are partially bypassed by an actual potted plant with a handwritten note. Fern does a better job than the filters. This violates 17 separate engineering principles, she whispers, her voice trembling as she records her findings. The biological component introduces unpredictable variables that should render the system unstable, yet. She consults readings from her quantum analyzer. Oxygen purity exceeds our standards by 3.7%. The examination grows more chaotic as they uncover increasingly baffling design choices. A junior engineer calls Vex Moria to the navigation section, where they've discovered sensors mounted at mathematically irregular intervals. We initially assumed human error, explains the younger alien. But our analysis shows these placements create perfect triangulation through a non-Euclidean mathematical framework that our systems cannot replicate. Almost as if, Vex Moria says slowly, they're sensing through dimensional harmonics rather than standard spacetime coordinates. The most disturbing discovery comes in the propulsion section. A critical stabilization component isn't the expected array of quantum gyroscopes, but what appears to be a modified children's toy, a spinning top encased in a magnetic field. "It shouldn't work," mutters the propulsion specialist. "By all calculations, this should create cascading failures within 7.3 seconds of activation." Their confusion deepens when they examine the central computer. The AI cores contain decision matrices that occasionally ignore perfect solutions in favor of what the programming identifies as vibes, a term that defies translation into any consortium language. They've programmed randomness into critical systems. Vex Moria says, mandibles clicking in distress. It's as if they're deliberately introducing chaos into order. The ultimate revelation comes accidentally. During a heated debate about human irrationality, junior xenobiologist Clothar knocks over a container of caustic analytical fluid. As the team panics, the spill spreads across the main engineering schematic table and reveals hidden circuitry drawn in organic reactive ink. "Secondary systems," whispers Vex Moria, watching in awe as complex patterns emerge. "No, tertiary systems. They've built in capabilities that only manifest under specific environmental stresses. Almost as if," begins Clothar, "as if their ships are designed to adapt like living organisms," finishes Vex Moria, "not through programming, but through physical transformation triggered by environmental conditions." The revelation sends shockwaves through the consortium. That evening, senior theorist Mel Torvak presents a paper at the Academy's Grand Symposium, suggesting humanity has evolved to perceive dimensional harmonics invisible to other species. "The mathematical universe model has been our foundation for millennia," he begins, his voice steady despite the murmurs of disapproval rippling through the audience. "But these humans navigate by a different framework altogether, one based on rhythm, resonance, and intuitive probability fields. They don't just interpret reality differently, they experience it differently." His colleagues physically drag him from the podium when he suggests reprogramming consortium education to introduce controlled irrationality into their navigation training. Security cameras captured dozens of junior scientists secretly recording his speech before it's purged from official records. Later that night, in her private laboratory, Vex Moria attempts something forbidden. She deactivates her mathematical modeling implants and tries to sense the shuttle components with her bare appendages, seeking whatever invisible patterns the humans perceive naturally. The quantum vortex looms on the view screens, a writhing maelstrom where reality itself fractures and reforms unpredictably. The consortium's Supreme Council breaks centuries of protocol to request human assistance when 3 diplomatic vessels carrying peace delegates become stranded inside. Captain Luisa Rodriguez, a 70-year-old veteran with steel-gray hair and scarred hands, leads a volunteer fleet of 5 mismatched Earth ships. "I fail to comprehend your methodology," admits Supreme Counselor Stavnar as Rodriguez's crew distributes their navigation tools during the final briefing. The ancient alien watches in bewilderment as humans arrange wind chimes near sensor arrays, place tuning forks at structural junctions, and position bottles of colored water at specific points throughout their vessels. "The vortex speaks," explains Rodriguez, tapping a tuning fork against her artificial leg and listening to the resonance with closed eyes. "We just need to listen properly." She smiles at the counselor's confusion. "Your sensors detect reality as fixed points of data. Ours," she gestures to the seemingly primitive tools, "detect the patterns between those points." The consortium observers are prohibited from boarding the human vessels during the mission, but surveillance devices capture footage that defies explanation. In the lead ship, the Esperanza, Rodriguez's navigators enter what medical scans identify as self-induced theta wave states, meditation trances that somehow sync with the ship's quantum field. Pilots respond to course changes seconds before sensors detect them, hands moving across controls as if guided by invisible forces. "They're anticipating fluctuations before they occur," whispers a consortium scientist, reviewing the footage in real time. as if they exist partially in future probability states. Most disquieting is the behavior of Rodriguez's first officer, Commander Lai. Cameras record him conversing with empty space, gesturing and responding to something invisible. Later analysis reveals he stands precisely at nexus points where microscopic reality fractures occur, invisible to consortium technology, but somehow perceptible to human senses. The boundaries talk to you if you listen, Lai explains later. They're like cracks in ice. You hear them before you see them. The rescue mission progresses deeper into the vortex than any consortium vessel has ever ventured. The human ships move in patterns that appear chaotic, but reveal stunning mathematical elegance when analyzed as a four-dimensional sequence. Each vessel seems to act as a note in a complex harmonic that somehow stabilizes the surrounding spacetime. The cost is high. 2 human ships, the Prometheus and Venture, are lost when a particularly violent reality shift tears through the formation. Yet their sacrifice isn't random. Sensor logs reveal they deliberately positioned themselves to shield the others, their destruction creating a resonance pattern that guides the remaining vessels to the stranded diplomats. During the memorial service held afterward, survivors reveal each crew voluntarily disconnected their automated systems before entering the most dangerous zones, knowing the sacrifice would provide the harmonic resonance needed for the others to navigate safely. When questioned by consortium scientists, a young human ensign with burned scars across her face responds with what becomes humanity's unofficial motto. Math can calculate the risk, but only the heart knows when the risk is worth taking. But how did you know? Persists the consortium interrogator. By what calculation did you determine which ships would be lost? We didn't, the ensign replies simply. No one knew who wouldn't come back. We all just accepted that some wouldn't. Captain Rodriguez chose volunteers who understood that silence is part of the music too. The consortium scientist's translation device struggles with the metaphor, eventually displaying error, concept translation incomplete. Disgraced consortium physicist Arne Veltak, stripped of titles and research privileges, hunches in the cramped quarters of a decommissioned mining station, surrounded by contraband human novels and jazz recordings. The once revered scientist now works in shadows, having dared suggest the mathematical foundation of consortium science might be incomplete. His isolation ends unexpectedly when Dr. James Okonkwo, a human physicist specializing in quantum harmonics, discovers his unauthorized research. Instead of reporting him to authorities, she brings 2 forbidden items: Earth coffee and her own heretical theories. You're studying our navigation techniques, she observes, eyeing his scattered notes on human intuitive response patterns. But you're missing something fundamental. Veltak's translucent appendages tremble with excitement. What am I missing? You're treating intuition as a shortcut, an approximation of perfect mathematical models, she explains, spreading her own papers across his workstation. It's the opposite. Your mathematics are the approximation of what we perceive directly. Their unlikely collaboration unfolds through a methodical series of experiments designed to bridge the perceptual gap between species. Okonkwo subjects herself to neural monitoring while navigating simulated anomalies, her brainwaves displaying patterns that anticipate quantum fluctuations before they occur. Veltak experiences human music while scanner arrays monitor his neurological responses, revealing that certain jazz improvisations precisely map to quantum probability distributions in ways traditional consortium mathematics cannot express. Listen to how Miles Davis uses silence between notes, Okonkwo explains, playing an ancient recording. The meaning exists in both the sound and the absence of sound, just like reality exists in both matter and the space between matter. Their most startling discovery comes through comparative testing of human children against consortium prodigies in predicting quantum fluctuations. The children consistently outperform the aliens, not through calculation, but through what one 6-year-old describes as feeling the tickles before they happen. The breakthrough that unifies their research comes not in a laboratory, but while rock climbing on Earth's still wild Montana cliffs. As Beltac dangles from a rope, experiencing vertigo and terror, his crystalline mind suddenly perceives the pattern Okonkwo has been trying to explain. The universe breathes, he gasps, watching sunlight filter through leaves stirred by wind. It expands and contracts in rhythms we've categorized as error variables because they don't fit our models. Exactly. Okonkwo exclaims. You're not experiencing calculation failure. You're experiencing perception expansion. Their paper, Intuitive Navigation, the missing variable in celestial mechanics, circulates first through human networks before inevitably leaking into consortium academic channels. Their central thesis, that consciousness itself participates in reality's unfolding rather than merely observing it, violates 17 foundational principles of consortium physics. The Interspecies Physics Symposium initially refuses them speaking time, relenting only under pressure from moderate factions, intrigued by the rescue mission's success. The auditorium fills with skeptical scientists when Okonkwo takes the stage. Mathematics describes reality, she begins, but doesn't contain it, just as a musical score isn't the music itself. To demonstrate their theory, Okonkwo performs a simple but devastating experiment. She allows herself to be blindfolded, then perfectly predicts the next 30 seconds of fluctuations in the room's quantum field, variations the consortium's most advanced computers can only calculate after they occur. The audience's stunned silence shatters when 17 young consortium scientists stand in sequence, remove their insignia of office, and request immediate transfer to Earth for remedial education. They don't want to learn our equations, Okonkwo explains to Beltac later. They want to learn how to feel the universe instead of just measuring it. The revolution begins not with politics, but with shared wonder. The galactic core pulses with unnatural light as a quantum cascade failure spreads across 17 systems. Emergency broadcasts in 300 languages flood all channels as the consortium's predictive models calculate total collapse within 52 hours. Evacuations begin, but the mathematics is clear. Billions will perish regardless of effort. In the chaos, human Admiral Maya Patel requisitions a conference room at consortium headquarters, bringing not advanced technology, but a 100-year-old piano salvaged from her grandmother's home on Earth. The universe isn't just mathematical, she explains to bewildered officials, her fingers dancing across ivory keys in patterns that somehow resemble the cascade's propagation when displayed on quantum monitors. It's musical. Her audacious plan stuns the consortium council. 50 human ships, each piloted by pairs of humans and volunteer consortium navigators, will execute precisely timed maneuvers creating gravitational harmonics that might, with infinitesimal probability, disrupt the cascade. Our computers calculate a 0.1% chance of success, announces the chief probability officer. Your computers, Pavel responds gently, don't understand music. The operation transforms into something unprecedented. Part military rescue, part scientific experiment, part transcendent performance art. Ships execute maneuvers timed to a shared musical score composed by Patel herself, a piece that maps quantum harmonics to tonal structures. From the consortium command center, officials watch in disbelief as human navigators guide their ships through the cascading quantum storm using methods that defy instrumentation. Some navigate by feeling vibrations through their bare feet on deck plates. Others use handcrafted devices resembling antique seismographs that somehow detect reality distortions before the most advanced sensors. They're treating space-time like an instrument, whispers a young consortium scientist, watching the human vessels move in patterns resembling nothing so much as a complex dance. And playing it. The operation reaches its most critical juncture when all standard communications fail. The consortium commanders despair. Certain coordination is lost, until they witness something extraordinary. The fleet maintains perfect synchronization by having each pilot listen to their heartbeats and breath, establishing a collective biological rhythm that somehow transcends the communications blackout. This isn't just intuition, realizes the consortium admiral. This is connection at a quantum level. The butterfly maneuver, as it comes to be known, reaches its climax as all 50 crews simultaneously reach the final note of Holst's Neptune, piped through their ship systems. The harmonics created by their precise positioning, a three-dimensional chord played across reality itself, interacts with the cascade's frequencies in ways no mathematical model predicted. Reality shudders. The cascade falters, then dissipates. In the stunned silence that follows salvation, a young consortium navigator breaks centuries of emotional reserve and weeps openly, her crystalline form vibrating with something the translator devices initially fail to identify. She struggles to explain through translator algorithms never designed for such concepts. Beautiful. The recording of her revelation becomes the most replicated data sequence in consortium archives, studied not just by scientists but by philosophers and artists. The moment marks a fundamental shift in consortium consciousness, the first time in their million-year history they've perceived what humans call beauty in mathematical form. Admiral Poitot later explains to a gathering of both species, mathematics tries to describe reality from outside. Music experiences reality from within. Today, we didn't just combine our technologies. We combined our ways of being. On the centennial of First Contact, the Great Hall of Celestial Harmony hosts an unprecedented gathering. Admiral Chen, her face weathered by decades navigating uncharted realms, stands before representatives from 700 worlds. Around her neck hangs a peculiar medallion, half precision-crafted consortium crystal, half hand-carved earthwood. The ceremony centers around a symbolic act that would have been unthinkable a century earlier: the public burning of the immutable rules of celestial navigation and the unveiling of its replacement, a slender volume titled simply The Harmony. "We began as strangers," Chen addresses the assembly, her voice carrying the wisdom of 100 impossible journeys. "You with your perfect mathematics, us with our imperfect intuition. Both incomplete. The new navigation principles transform galactic civilization in ways few could have predicted. Mixed human-alien crews venture into previously impossible regions using technologies that merge mathematical precision with intuitive artistry. Ships now carry both quantum computing arrays and handcrafted instruments designed to detect the subtle rhythms of space-time. The Quantum Conservatory on Earth becomes the most prestigious learning institution in known space. In its circular meditation halls, consortium mathematical prodigies sit alongside human children gifted in spatial intuition, each learning from the other's perception of reality. "The hardest lesson," explains Master Teacher Lin to a new class of mixed-species students, "is understanding that neither approach alone is sufficient. The universe speaks both languages simultaneously." Species begin to evolve in response to this new understanding. Some consortium races genetically modify themselves to develop the neural architecture that supports human-style intuition. Meanwhile, human colonies in the deep void enhance their mathematical thinking through neural interfaces designed by alien partners. Perhaps most significantly, a new hybrid language emerges, mathematical symbols interwoven with human musical notation and poetry, capable of describing reality with unprecedented accuracy. The coordinates for new exploration vessels are no longer calculated solely by computers, but composed by teams of mathematician artists working in harmonic collaboration. In a quiet corner of the centennial celebration, Rodriguez, now in her final years, speaks with a young human consortium hybrid navigator. The young navigator's crystalline appendages shimmer with excitement as she describes her upcoming expedition beyond the known universe. "What instruments will you use?" Rodriguez asks, genuinely curious about the next generation's methods. The young navigator's response represents everything the revolution has achieved. Sometimes traditional sensors, sometimes human intuition tools, but mostly She touches the center of her hybrid chest, where both human heart and consortium crystalline matrix pulse in synchrony. Mostly I'll use this. Rodriguez smiles in recognition. The courage to improvise when facing the unknown. And the wisdom to calculate when precision matters, the navigator adds. As the celebration continues around them, Rodriguez gazes through the viewports at the surrounding stars. The same stars that once seemed bound by immutable rules. Now they represent infinite possibilities, accessible through the unique synthesis of two profoundly different ways of knowing. The final scene shows humanity's greatest gift spreading through the galaxy. The courage to embrace uncertainty as opportunity rather than threat, and the consortium's greatest gift in return, the recognition that patterns exist even in chaos. Together, they've discovered something neither could find alone. That perfection was never the point. The universe isn't a problem to be solved, but a dance to be joined.